All right, we have more changes unfolding in the global threat landscape, changes that have high level members of the Russian government, including Vladimir Putin himself, coming out and saying on the record that ISIS is not responsible for that awful attack that we saw play out last Friday. And if you look on social media, you're going to see tons of speculation as to what really happened, who really was behind it, if it was ISIS, if it wasn't, who even is ISIS at this point. We also have high-ranking former U.S. military coming out with alternate explanations. Some you're going to want to hear. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps out the channel. And consider subscribing so you don't miss these regular updates. Also, if you're a business owner or sales manager looking to automate your sales process and organize your business, check out Snapforce CRM, my company. One app to manage your customers, your deals, track your sales, run reports, sync all customer communication into a central database, even send emails and text messages automatically to your customers, and much more. If you're unhappy with your current CRM, give our product a try with our 14-day free trial or schedule a demonstration, a free demo with one of our representatives. So what the hell's going on with all of this chatter over who's to blame for the awful concert attack on Friday? You'd think it should be cut and dry, right? The perpetrators, they've all been caught. Russian authorities have them all in custody, all four of them already having their initial court appearances in Moscow yesterday. Now, what you'll notice, especially if you're from the States, it's apparent how different things are in Russia, how different they treat bad actors over there. Clearly a rough interrogation, which we'll circle back to in a minute. But here's the situation. Here's what we know about these four who committed this atrocity on Friday. They're all Tajiks. They're also paid killers. They were allegedly paid 500,000 rubles, which is only a few thousand USD to carry this all out. Also, an unknown third party provided the weapons. More about that also shortly. Now, all four of them were caught by Russian authorities while fleeing to Ukraine. Immediately after this happened, Western media came out and blamed ISIS. The U.S. government said they've determined it was the work of ISIS, actually the work of an ISIS offshoot called ISIS-K, which stands for the Islamic State of Khorasan. French intel came out and said the same thing. So what's the deal? Well, things get a bit odd from there when you start looking into it. For starters, the Russian government doesn't agree. They are the country who was targeted. They're the country who's investigating the attack, interrogating the suspects, clearly wanting to get to the bottom of this more than anyone. So I don't know, maybe we should see what they have to say about this, which Western media isn't doing. Russia says ISIS was not behind this. Here's Vladimir Putin during his national address over the weekend explain. Watch this.
That this crime was committed by radical Islamists, people who are combated around the world. We see that the United States are using their channels to whitewash their satellites and all of those who, according to their statements, have no part in this attack. And they're saying that it is the banned organization of ISIS is fully responsible, but we know who carried out the attack. We are interested in knowing who ordered this attack. And the question arises, who is to benefit?
Now you'll notice he doesn't blame Ukraine outright, but he points out the information that they learned thus far, that they were heading for Ukraine, he says, and claims that people in Ukraine were working in this small window of time to help the four suspects over the border. So why then is the U.S. saying ISIS is responsible? How could we even know that for sure only minutes after the attack? Where's the evidence? Well, I'll show you. The evidence is from their official social media account. They took credit, basically. But a lot of other countries don't seem convinced, many pointing to Ukraine and other three-letter agencies knowing about this beforehand, knowing more about this certainly, some even saying they had a role in it. Now here's what I do know. When the media comes out in unison and says the same thing, when all Western media and government come together and align, we should be asking more questions, not less. For example, why did the State Department come out just days before and warn Americans in Russia to stay away from concert halls? And by the way, if you're wondering why people are suspicious about throwing ISIS back into the mix, it's because whenever they do this, it's used as a pretext for war. It's used as a hook to do something else. Well, leave it to Lindsey Graham to say the quiet part out loud. The South Carolina senator, he took to X yesterday to write this, quote, "We should be hitting ISIS-K targets in Afghanistan hard, disrupting their operations before it's too late. We need to gain operational control of the border now, before it's too late," unquote. You can't make this up. Yes, Lindsey Graham, the worst Republican in Congress, in my opinion, demanding we send our military back to Afghanistan. And why? To deal with ISIS. It's all circular reasoning, folks. Look, I have no idea who's behind this disgusting attack we saw on Friday. The U.S. says it was ISIS. Russia says it wasn't. We'll probably never know the full backstory. And anytime intel services are involved, things are much deeper than they appear on the surface. For example, if it was really ISIS, did our intel services know about it beforehand and choose not to warn the Russians? Which would be pretty messed up. I don't know. Some people say that they did provide some warning. Others say that they didn't. I do know Russia warned us about the Boston bomber, informed us to arrest the brother months before that happened. Retired U.S. Army Colonel Douglas McGregor wrote this on X, quote, "The perpetrators of the bad attack in Russia tried to escape from Russia into Ukraine near Belgorod and are directly tied to Muslim elements fighting on behalf of the Ukraine. Were they originally ISIS or something else? I have no idea, but there is little doubt that MI6, CIA were involved," unquote. Then oddly enough, 2 weeks ago, the FBI director said this to Congress. Watch.
Let's talk a little bit about
You're not kidding.
what was happening in the Senate Intel Committee yesterday. They heard from all 6 Intel chiefs about worldwide threats. And you don't have to look any further than our southern border, because the director of the FBI said bad people coming in. In fact, they've got information that certain smugglers with connections to ISIS have tried to get people in the country. Listen to this.
There is a particular network that has where some of the overseas facilitators of the smuggling network have ISIS ties that we're very concerned about, and that we've been spending an enormous amount of effort with our partners investigating.
So there is a network we're concerned about that has facilitators involved in it that have ties to ISIS and other terrorist organizations.
Correct.
Which means if this was in fact ISIS or ISIS-K or whatever, like Western intel suggests, then why hasn't the current administration closed the border? The southern border, the FBI director just told and testified that ISIS may be infiltrating the southern border. What the hell's going on? We have millions of illegal migrants crossing the southern border each year, 10 million plus in the last 3 years. We have no idea who they are, how many are part of ISIS-K and waiting to be activated by their handlers. And we have the current administration not doing anything to stop the flow or slow it down. I really think they're making a huge mistake. If something were to happen, they're at fault here. And look, immigration is now the most important voter issue according to Gallup, and it should be, as it affects so many other aspects of life. Jobs, housing affordability. Think about the number of homes needed to house 10 million more people in a matter of 3 years. We already have a housing shortage or an active listing shortage. Anyways, all right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.